Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of MMA Vision Analysis. This one, we're going to talk about Stylebender's comments on UFC 308 middleweight bout. Khamzat Chimaev, Robert Whittaker. We're going to get into those comments. Before getting started, make sure to like, subscribe, click that notification to get all of this that is new from this channel, your channel, the one and only MMA Vision Analysis. Excitement. It's the only thing that I can think of when I think of this fight. This is precisely why we love this game. Obviously, this fight here has the potential of becoming fight of the night, even though it's on just a wild card. That whole card is just absolutely shaping up to be one of the best. Let's say it's definitely top 3 best cards of this year so far. This fight here is perhaps going to end up being fight of the night. It's either this one or the main event, one of the two. We're talking about the middleweight bout here, obviously. Khamzat Chimaev, Robert Whittaker. We're going to get into Israel Adesanya's comments. Israel has had some very interesting comments to make regarding this fight. Obviously, he's faced Whittaker, and he knows the style of Whittaker. Whittaker is on a upward trajectory as of late, obviously. He's on a hunt to recapture his title. After, obviously Adesanya came through and just kind of did what he did to Whittaker, made Whittaker look like an average fighter, even though Whittaker's far from an average fighter. Obviously, he's had his losses after the Adesanya fights. But eventually, he's in a number 1 contender matchup against the newcomer to the division, Khamzat Chimaev. Now, when Adesanya talks about this fight, he talks, obviously, from experience. Number 1, he's faced one of the guys that's fighting UFC 308. And obviously, that's Whittaker. He thinks that Whittaker has the potential to finish Khamzat Chimaev in the later rounds of that fight. But first, he must weather the storm. It's Adesanya's words. And I kind of agree with that. One way to look at it is that we've talked about this fight so many times before. Khamzat Chimaev is not so much a strategist when he's in there. He's a brawler, wild fighter who's going to look for exchanges. Even if there is a game plan, sometimes the guy gets a bit too excited, and it cost him at times. Look at what happened against Gilbert Burns. And in the later round, I believe the 5th round, specifically against Kamaru Usman, but specifically against Gilbert Burns, Khamzat Chimaev puts himself in compromising positions due to his lack of strategy, I think, and just being a wild brawler, which is exactly why we love him and we love to watch this guy fight. Now, he's stepping up in weight, obviously, first and foremost, and he's facing a former champion of the division that's on an upward trajectory, Robert Whittaker. I believe that Khamzat Chimaev has not faced anything even close to Robert Whittaker. With all respect to the Gilbert Burns and the Kevin Hollands of the 170, and obviously Kamaru Usman's, which he faced Usman. I believe Usman that's out of his prime. I believe it's safe to say he's facing something that he's never faced before. Robert Whittaker is a different kind of monster, something that he's never, I believe, never faced anything like Robert Whittaker before. Obviously, when we talked about this fight before, we said that if Khamzat Chimaev wants to be successful, he has to implement wrestling, and he has to do that in the earlier rounds. Those rounds could be won that way. Some of the sparring footage circulating of Chimaev shows him wrestling and drilling down those wrestling techniques. I believe if he wants to be successful against Robert Whittaker, he has to take this fight to the ground and search for that submission. And if I were a betting guy, I would bet that Khamzat Chimaev, if he was to win this fight, he takes this fight to the ground. Either he wins the fight by, obviously, ground game, just keeping Whittaker down, or submission. And when we're talking about submission, I want to say rear naked choke. I just have a feeling that if Khamzat was to win this fight, it's going to be specifically this way. Obviously, there are other options. We're just expressing ideas here. But Robert Whittaker, truthfully, has to only engage with Khamzat Chimaev a handful of times before he lands the shot that puts Chimaev out. The undefeated Chimaev, that is. As we mentioned earlier, he's looked compromised, and he's looked compromised in lower weight classes against, excuse me, for all, no offense to any Gilbert Burns fan. I actually am a huge Gilbert Burns fan, but when we're talking about levels, Gilbert Burns, Robert Whittaker, two different levels of fight. Gilbert Burns showed the holes in Khamzat Chimaev's game, I believe. And if Robert Whittaker's able to lure Khamzat Chimaev in to exchange with Whittaker, I believe Whittaker is the superior striker out of the two. But that does not mean that Chimaev isn't able to catch Whittaker as well. All I'm saying here is that Whittaker is better than any opponent that Chimaev faced before, specifically striking. I believe that if Whittaker's able to lure Khamzat Chimaev in, which Khamzat Chimaev is known to get wild parts of fights, is not known to be a strategist. Whittaker's more of the strategist. If he's able to lure Chimaev in to exchange with him, then I believe Whittaker really has the chance to put a Chimaev out, perhaps in the later rounds. As Stylebender says, he believes that Whittaker is to put out Chimaev out in the later rounds. Now, we're just expressing ideas here, just throwing stuff at the wall. At the end of the day, we're going to have to wait UFC 308 to see what sticks. But this fight is super excited. I'm just super, super excited for this fight here in particular. If you made it this far, I appreciate it for sticking around. Please let me know in the comments and like, subscribe for more.